Earth was a small blue planet in the vastness of space, tucked in a corner of the galaxy. For centuries, humanity had looked up at the stars, dreaming of the day they would meet beings from other worlds. But now, that dream had turned into a nightmare. A cold, emotionless voice echoed across every communication channel on Earth. The message was clear, and it left no room for doubt. The Galactic Empire had arrived, and their demands were simple. Earth would either kneel before them and submit to their rule or face destruction. The voice belonged to Vorthak, the supreme leader of the Empire. His image flickered on every screen, his eyes cold and unforgiving. "We have conquered hundreds of worlds. Yours will be no different," he declared, his tone as sharp as a blade. "You have 7 days to surrender. If you do not, we will show you the true meaning of power. You will be erased." The world went silent. In the United Nations, Earth's leaders gathered for an emergency meeting. They sat in a grand room, their faces filled with fear and uncertainty. The ultimatum had come like a storm out of nowhere. Most of them were terrified. The Empire was known for its terrifying technology, its massive fleets, and its ruthless methods. How could humanity, small, unprepared, and outmatched, possibly survive such a force? "We have no choice," one of the world leaders spoke, his voice trembling. "If we refuse, they will destroy us. We are nothing compared to their power." "But we cannot just give in," said another leader, a woman named Maria Rivera, a strong-willed diplomat who had long fought for peace. "If we surrender, we lose everything. Our freedom, our way of life. We cannot kneel to them." The room fell silent again, the weight of the decision heavy on everyone's shoulders. The Empire's fleets were already on their way, with enough power to wipe out Earth in a single strike. Time was running out. Across the room, a quiet figure sat alone, her eyes fixed on the screen. Dr. Mara Chen was a scientist, known for her brilliant mind and unorthodox ideas. She had worked for years on technological advancements that could change the world, yet she had never dreamed of using them for war. Now, however, it seemed like her ideas might be Earth's only hope. "I don't believe we have to surrender," Mara spoke suddenly, her voice calm but full of determination. The room turned to her, puzzled. "You have an idea?" Maria asked, her voice filled with a mix of hope and curiosity. Mara nodded slowly. "Yes, the Empire's technology is powerful, but they've grown arrogant. They underestimate us. We're not going to win by fighting them head-on. We're not strong enough. But we can outsmart them. We have the ability to adapt, to think outside the box. If we use our creativity, our resilience, we can make them pay for their arrogance." The leaders stared at Mara, not entirely sure what to think. But they were desperate, and her words had sparked a glimmer of hope. "Tell us what you need," Maria said, her tone shifting from doubt to belief. "If there's a way, we'll do it." Mara stood up and walked to the front of the room, her mind racing with possibilities. "We have to disrupt their technology, strike at their weaknesses. I've been researching their fleet's communication systems and their energy networks. There are vulnerabilities. If we can hack into their systems, disable their ships, and turn their own weapons against them, we may stand a chance." The room was filled with murmurs of surprise and cautious excitement. The leaders knew that taking on the Empire was a gamble. But what choice did they have? Surrender was not an option. "Dr. Chen, you have our support," another leader said, his voice filled with resolve. "But we'll need more than just a plan. We need a force, a way to organize the entire planet." Mara nodded. "I know. We'll need every nation working together. Our military, scientists, engineers, and even hackers will have to be fast. The Empire has 7 days, but we can't afford to waste a single moment. We'll use their technology against them, and when they think they have us cornered, we'll strike." The leaders exchanged glances, and for the first time in days, there was a sense of unity. Earth was not going to bow down. Not today. Not ever. Mara looked at the group with a fierce determination in her eyes. This is humanity's chance. We fight with everything we have. We may be small in the grand scale of the galaxy, but we're not going down without a fight. As the meeting came to an end, the leaders knew the road ahead would be difficult, even dangerous. But they had a plan, and that was all they needed. Earth would not kneel. The days passed quickly, and Earth's leaders worked tirelessly, pushing every nation to cooperate. The task seemed impossible. The Empire's fleets were vast and powerful, their technology far beyond what humanity had ever imagined. Yet Mara Chen's words had sparked a fire in people all over the world. Earth would not bend. Earth would not kneel. Mara's plan was bold. She believed that, despite their advanced technology, the Empire's arrogance would be their downfall. They thought of Earth as an insignificant planet, too weak to resist their domination. But that, she believed, was exactly what would give humanity an edge. The first step was to disrupt the Empire's communications. Mara worked day and night with a team of the best hackers from across the globe. They hacked into the Empire's satellites, sending scrambled messages to confuse their fleet. Mara had studied the Empire's systems closely, and she knew that without their efficient communication, even the most advanced fleets would struggle. The attacks were small at first, but they were enough to cause confusion and delay. "We can't afford to play it safe," Mara said, her voice filled with intensity. "If we disrupt their communication networks even for a moment, it will buy us precious time." The resistance worked quickly. Earth's military, equipped with new strategies and unconventional tactics, set traps for the Empire's smaller scout ships. They didn't have the numbers or firepower of the Empire's fleet, but they didn't need to. With the Empire's communication systems in disarray, their smaller ships were vulnerable. A small team of fighter pilots, led by Captain Olivia Harrison, managed to capture one of the Empire's scout ships. It was a risky mission, but they succeeded. Captain Harrison and her crew returned to Earth with a valuable prize. The ship was loaded with data on the Empire's operations. Back at Earth's headquarters, Mara and her team eagerly examined the data. "This is it," Mara whispered, her eyes wide with excitement. "This ship is the key to unlocking the Empire's weaknesses. We now know their fuel systems, their shield designs, and most importantly, their energy reactor." The Empire's energy reactors were the heart of their power, capable of fueling entire fleets. But Mara quickly discovered a flaw. The reactors were designed for maximum output, but they were also fragile. If tampered with in the right way, they could become unstable, causing a chain reaction that could disable an entire fleet. "We can use this," Mara said, a sense of triumph in her voice. "If we sabotage their reactors, we can cripple their ships." However, the information from the captured scout ship wasn't enough. They needed more, much more. And that's when Earth's resistance took the next bold step. A team of human engineers, led by Dr. Victor Sanders, worked around the clock to develop technology that would allow them to intercept and disable the Empire's power sources. They designed a small, powerful device that could infiltrate the Empire's energy systems and trigger the instability. But the device would need to be delivered to the heart of the Empire's fleet, a nearly impossible task. Meanwhile, the Empire's leaders were growing impatient. Vorthek, the ruthless supreme leader, had sent his most experienced commanders to Earth to oversee the invasion. They were certain that the human resistance was nothing more than a brief nuisance. The Empire's forces had crushed countless worlds, and Earth would be no different. Vorthek sat in his command center, watching as his fleet closed in on Earth. His cold, calculating eyes stared at the screen. "Prepare to crush them," he ordered. "These humans have shown no respect for our power. They will learn their place." But the Empire had made a critical mistake. They underestimated the human spirit. They didn't realize that humanity's greatest strength lay not in their technology or military might, but in their determination to survive, to fight for their freedom. Back on Earth, as the days ticked down, the human resistance was readying for a final push. The Empire thought they were preparing to destroy Earth, but in reality, the humans were preparing to strike back in a way they never expected. They had learned the weaknesses of the Empire's ships, and now it was time to use them. As the countdown to the Empire's attack continued, Mara and her team worked feverishly to perfect the plan. They had one shot. They couldn't afford to fail. The device to disable the reactors was ready, but they still needed to find a way to get it into the Empire's fleet. Every moment counted. Vorthex's fleet was now within striking distance. The tension was palpable, and Earth's military forces braced for impact. But as they did, they couldn't help but feel a strange sense of hope. For the first time since the Empire's ultimatum, they believed victory was possible. The Empire thought they had already won. They thought they could erase Earth without effort. But they had made a mistake, a big one. The fight for Earth was about to begin. The clock was ticking. Earth had just days left before the Empire's fleets arrived to crush them. Mara Chen and her team had worked non-stop, assembling their plan. The Empire's arrogance had clouded their judgment. They thought Earth was nothing more than a weak, unprepared planet. But humanity had proved time and time again that when pushed to the edge, they could rise with unimaginable strength. Mara stood at the control center, her eyes glued to the screen. The data from the captured Empire scout ship had given them the information they needed, and the device to sabotage their reactors was ready. But the hardest part remained, getting that device to the heart of the Empire's fleet. The Empire's ships were now in orbit, their massive forms visible even from Earth's surface. Thousands of soldiers, weapons, and fleets waited, ready to launch an assault. It seemed impossible, but humanity was not about to bow down. "Dr. Chen, we're ready to launch," a voice called from behind her. It was Captain Olivia Harrison, leading the human strike force. Her fighter pilots had trained for this moment. Knowing their mission was as dangerous as it was critical, they had to infiltrate the Empire's fleet, deliver the sabotage device, and escape without being detected. "Are you sure the device is ready?" Mara asked, her voice steady but full of worry. It was a lot to ask of the team. "It's ready," Captain Harrison replied. "We've already scrambled their communications. It's the perfect moment. The fleet is distracted. We move fast, we strike hard, and we disappear before they even realize what happened." Mara nodded. "Good luck, Captain. Earth's future depends on you now." The mission began. A squadron of human fighter jets soared into the sky, breaking through the atmosphere and heading straight for the Empire's fleet. Their ships were small, fast, and agile, designed for quick strikes and stealth. They were the perfect weapon against the massive, clunky Empire ships that had grown complacent in their own power. The humans' first goal was to slip past the outer defenses, where the Empire had set up a shield of scouting ships. These ships were there to catch any intruders, but Earth's pilots had learned how to hide in plain sight. They used the distractions Mara's team had created to their advantage, dodging sensors and avoiding detection. For a few moments, it seemed like they were invisible. Inside the Empire's fleet, the commanders sat, believing that victory was assured. Vorthex's fleet hovered just above Earth, waiting for the final signal to strike. The Empire's forces were ready for a quick, flawless invasion. They had wiped out dozens of civilizations. What was one more? "What are the humans doing?" one of the Empire's commanders asked, watching Earth's forces from the bridge of his ship. "They're still sending out signals," his officer replied, "but they're not sending anything important. They seem to be preparing to resist, but it's just a matter of time before they're crushed." The commander smirked. "Then let's show them what real power looks like." But what they didn't know was that the humans were ready, and their surprise attack was already in motion. As the human fighters neared the heart of the Empire's fleet, Captain Harrison's voice came through the comms. "We're almost there. Stay sharp." The sabotage device, hidden inside a fighter jet, was their only hope. It was small, compact, and designed to be slipped inside the Empire's reactor cores without being noticed. But the Empire's defenses were not going to be easy to overcome. The squadron had to get close, dangerously close, to the massive warships. The pilots knew they were risking everything. The moment they were detected, the Empire's fleet would launch a full-scale attack. One by one, the fighters slipped past the outer defense rings, flying right under the radar. The Empire's ships, too focused on their invasion plans, didn't notice the tiny, fast-moving fighters darting in and out of their massive hulls. It was a race against time, with every second counting. As they approached the central command ship, Captain Harrison's voice crackled over the comms. "We're in position. All units, get ready to deploy." Mara had designed the device to be planted inside the Empire's energy reactors, the very core that powered their entire fleet. If it worked, the Empire's ships would be powerless. In the heart of the command ship, Vorthak's eyes narrowed as he studied the data. Something felt off, but he couldn't put his finger on it. The signals from Earth were growing weaker, but the fleet was prepared. It was time to strike. "Prepare to fire," he ordered coldly. "This ends now." But before he could give the final command, a sudden explosion rattled the fleet. It wasn't a huge blast, but the impact was enough to cause chaos. The fleet's central reactor had been hit, and the energy levels began to fluctuate wildly. "What is happening?" Vorthak shouted, rising from his chair. He couldn't understand it. The human forces had barely touched the Empire's ships, but somehow their power systems were failing. Human fighters darted through the sky, weaving between explosions and flashing lights. They had done it. They had planted the device inside the reactor. Mara's voice came through the comms, her calm tone a contrast to the chaos. "The device is in place. The Empire's energy core is destabilizing. They're going to lose control." The first strike had been a success, but it was only the beginning. Vorthak had underestimated humanity. The fight for Earth was far from over. The moment Earth's strike team had planted the sabotage device inside the Empire's reactor, chaos erupted throughout the fleet. Sparks flew from power conduits, and lights flickered across the massive warships. Vorthak, the supreme leader of the Empire, stood frozen in disbelief as the Empire's most powerful vessels started to lose power. He had not expected this. "What's happening?" he barked, his voice cold and full of anger. "Explain this, now." One of his officers scrambled over the controls, tapping frantically. "There's a disturbance in our power grid, Lord Vorthak. It looks like someone tampered with our reactors. The energy levels are unstable. Find them." Vorthak roared. "Find those humans and destroy them. We can't let this weakness spread." The Empire's commanders began issuing orders to scramble the fleet, sending every ship into a defensive formation. They believed they could contain the damage. But the truth was that Earth's unexpected strike had already done more than enough to destabilize their control. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Mara Chen and her team watched as the Empire's fleet floundered in chaos. The first strike had succeeded, but there was no time to celebrate. They had only seconds before the Empire recovered and launched a counterattack. "This isn't over," Mara said, her face serious. "They'll retaliate. The Empire won't just sit back and let this happen." Captain Olivia Harrison, who had led the strike team, stood next to her. "We've got to prepare. The Empire's fleet is about to turn on us, and we need to be ready for whatever comes next." Mara nodded. She had already anticipated this. The sabotage had weakened the Empire, but they were far from defeated. The next step was to take advantage of the damage they'd caused and hit the Empire when they were at their weakest. "We need to launch everything we've got," Mara said, her voice determined. "We've delayed them, but now we have to finish what we started. We can't give them the chance to regroup." Mara's plan was clear. Earth's forces would strike while the Empire was disoriented. They couldn't wait any longer. If they hesitated, the Empire would recover and launch an even more devastating attack. At the Empire's command center, the mood had shifted dramatically. What had started as an assured victory was now slipping through their fingers. Vorthek clenched his fists, his rage boiling over. "Deploy all forces," he ordered. "This rebellion will be crushed, no matter what it takes." The Empire's fleet, now fully mobilized, began to move toward Earth, their massive ships gliding through the stars with terrifying speed. Vorthek's forces were preparing to strike back with overwhelming force. But what they didn't realize was that Earth's forces were ready. Back on Earth, Captain Harrison and her squadron of fighter pilots scrambled into their ships. The entire world was on edge. The Empire's retaliation was coming, and humanity's future was hanging by a thread. "We've done this before," Harrison said to her team as they took their positions. "We've been through worse. We know what's at stake." With a series of loud thumps, the fighters launched into the air, breaking through Earth's atmosphere and into the cold darkness of space. The mission was simple: take the fight to the Empire while they were vulnerable. As Earth's military forces moved into position, Mara stood at the control center, overseeing the operations. The team was working in perfect coordination. They had learned from their previous strikes. The Empire's weakness had been exposed, and they had to hit it hard before the Empire regained its footing. The battle in space began in earnest as both sides engaged in a fierce confrontation. The Empire, now aware of the threat from Earth, launched everything they had, sending countless ships to destroy Earth's forces. But Earth's resistance wasn't backing down. Fighter jets zipped through space, engaging the larger, slower Empire ships in fast-moving dogfights. The Empire's ships, with all their might, were struggling to land hits on the much smaller and more agile Earth fighters. Captain Harrison led her squadron through the chaos. "Keep your heads in the game, people. Don't let them catch you off guard." Explosions rocked the space around them as Empire ships exploded one by one. The tables had turned. Humanity's smaller forces were inflicting serious damage. The Empire's once imposing fleet was slowly being overwhelmed by the unexpected resistance. But the Empire wasn't finished yet. Their fleets regrouped, and they began to retaliate with devastating force. Massive energy blasts filled space, lighting up the void with blinding light. Several Earth fighter jets were hit, their ships disintegrating in fiery explosions. "We're taking heavy fire," one of the pilots shouted. "Stay strong," Harrison shouted back. "We can do this." They're not invincible. Earth's forces held their ground, but the Empire's wrath was powerful. Vorthek had sent in his elite forces, ships with enhanced weaponry designed to break any enemy's defense. They were relentless, firing at anything in their path. Mara watched the battle unfold from Earth's command center. She knew that the coming hours would determine whether humanity survived or was wiped out by the Empire's might. The fight was not yet over, but Earth had proven one thing: they would never kneel. The battle raged on in space, with Earth's forces holding their ground against the Empire's powerful fleets. Captain Olivia Harrison's squadron was in the thick of it, weaving in and out of fire from the Empire's advanced ships. The small Earth fighters were faster and more agile, but the Empire's firepower was overwhelming. Every second felt like a lifetime. "Keep pushing," Captain Harrison shouted to her squadron. "They're not unbeatable. We've seen what happens when we hit them where it hurts." The fighters zoomed past the massive Empire warships, dodging the deadly blasts and returning fire. The Empire's commanders were scrambling to regroup their forces, but they were not prepared for the coordinated strike Earth had unleashed. The tide was slowly beginning to turn. On Earth's surface, Mara Chen stood at the control center, watching the fight unfold through the live feed. The data showed that Earth's fighters were causing more damage than expected, but the Empire was far from defeated. Vorthek had sent his elite forces, ships with enhanced weapons designed to crush any enemy, and they were pushing back harder than ever. "This isn't enough," Mara muttered, her hands resting on the control panel. "We need something more, something to shift the balance." Behind her, a young technician spoke up. "Dr. Chen, We have the data on the Empire's power cores. There's a vulnerability. If we can strike the right spots, we could take out their entire fleet. Mara's eyes narrowed as she considered the technician's words. If they could target the Empire's power cores, they could cripple their entire fleet. It was risky, but it was their best chance. The problem was getting close enough to strike. If we can get past their elite ships, we can do it, Mara said, turning to the technician. We need to find a way to get our fighters close enough to their main fleet. We've done it before. We can do it again. The technician nodded. We've been working on a plan. It's a long shot, but we think we can get our forces through the enemy defenses undetected. We have a new stealth protocol that might just work. Mara didn't hesitate. Prepare it. Now. Meanwhile, in the heart of the Empire's fleet, Vorthek watched as his forces struggled to maintain control. The humans had proven to be more resilient than he had anticipated. His elite ships were pushing back hard, but Earth's fighters kept finding ways to break through their defenses. They're not just fighting for survival, Vorthek muttered to himself. They're fighting to win. His thoughts were interrupted by one of his officers. Lord Vorthek, we have a new problem. Earth's fighters are using a new stealth technique. We've lost contact with several of our patrol ships. They've slipped past our outer defenses. Vorthek's eyes narrowed. Find them. Do not let them escape. Earth is playing a dangerous game, but it will cost them. The Empire had underestimated humanity, but they had learned their lesson. They now fought with a ferocity that Vorthek had never expected from a species he considered weak and insignificant. But even as he plotted his next move, the damage had already been done. Back on Earth, Captain Harrison's squadron was preparing for their next mission. The Empire had begun to react to the stealth technology, and it wouldn't be long before they adjusted their defenses, but Earth had to move quickly. We've got one shot at this, Captain Harrison said as she addressed her team. We get close enough to those Empire ships, and we destroy their power cores. If we don't, it's over. Her squadron of pilots nodded. They had faced impossible odds before. This was just another mission, another challenge they had to face. But this time, they weren't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for their future. Mara and her team continued to monitor the situation from Earth's command center. The stealth protocol had been activated, and Earth's fighters were now invisible to the Empire's sensors. For a moment, it seemed like they might actually pull it off. Captain Harrison's voice crackled through the comms. We're in position. The Empire doesn't know we're here. It's time to hit them where it hurts. The fighters moved swiftly and silently through the Empire's massive fleet, avoiding patrol ships and sensors. They were close now, closer than ever before. The Empire's powerful warships loomed in front of them, their massive weapons ready to unleash destruction. But they were vulnerable. They had no idea Earth's fighters were right under their noses. The squadron leader gave the order, and in that instant, the fighters launched their assault. They targeted the Empire's power cores, sending explosive devices deep into the heart of the enemy ships. The first blast rocked an entire warship, causing it to spin out of control. A second blast followed, and another ship fell, its engines destroyed. For a moment, the Empire seemed frozen. The mighty warships, their pride and joy, were crumbling under the humans' assault. Vorthek's elite forces began to panic. Their ships were no longer the indestructible giants they had once been. Now they were vulnerable, just like any other ship. But Vorthek wasn't one to give up so easily. He gathered his most trusted commanders and issued a final order. Destroy them. Everything we have. All our might. Unleash it upon Earth. But it was too late. The Empire's power had been dealt a crushing blow. Earth's forces had proven that they would never bow to tyranny. They had fought with everything they had, and they had won. The Empire's once mighty fleet was now in disarray. Ships that had once been invincible were now struggling to stay afloat, their power cores damaged beyond repair. Explosions echoed through the vastness of space as Earth's forces, hidden and swift, continued to strike relentlessly. Captain Olivia Harrison and her squadron were no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to finish what they had started. The mission was clear: destroy the Empire's power, cripple their ability to fight back, and end their reign of terror once and for all. "We've hit their main fleet hard, but we can't let up now," Harrison said, her voice calm but filled with determination. "We take down the next wave of ships, and we can end this." Her squadron of fighter pilots nodded in agreement. They had already seen what Earth's forces could do, but the Empire wasn't going to surrender without a fight. Their next move would determine whether they could turn the tide once and for all. On Earth, Mara Chen stood at the command center, overseeing the operations. She had watched as the Empire's fleet crumbled under their attack, but the battle was far from over. Vorthak, the supreme leader, was not one to give up easily. If anything, he was going to come back with a vengeance. "They've learned their lesson," Mara said quietly, her eyes glued to the monitors. "But so have we. We've proven that they are not invincible. We've shown the galaxy that Earth can fight back." A young technician approached her with an urgent update. "Dr. Chen, we're receiving communication from the Empire. It's a direct message to Earth's leaders." Mara turned to face the technician. "What's the message?" The technician hesitated before replying. "It's a threat. Vorthak is demanding Earth's immediate surrender. He claims that if Earth does not kneel, the Empire will destroy the planet." Mara clenched her fists in frustration. "They think they can just threaten us and make us submit." "Seems like it," the technician replied. "But Dr. Chen, I think we've shown them that they can't simply push us around. Earth won't kneel." Mara nodded. "That's right. We're not backing down. But we need to hit them harder. We need to make sure they understand that their threats won't work." Back in space, the Empire's fleet was regrouping, but they were far from coordinated. Vorthak had ordered his elite ships to retaliate with everything they had. But the damage had already been done. Earth's fighters were too swift, too precise. The Empire's warships, massive and slow, were no match for Earth's agility. Vorthak's anger was palpable. He watched as his ships faltered under the relentless barrage from Earth's forces. How could this be happening? He growled. How could such a weak species stand up to the might of the Empire? His officers did their best to reassure him. "We still have our fleet, Lord Vorthak. We can recover. We can still crush them." Vorthak's eyes narrowed. "Not if they keep hitting us like this. They're learning. They're adapting. I underestimated them." Meanwhile, Captain Harrison's squadron was preparing for the final push. The Empire had begun to retaliate in force, but the humans had the advantage. The Empire's vulnerability had been exposed, and now it was time to strike the final blow. "We've taken out most of their flagship fleet," Harrison said as she looked at her squadron. "Now we finish them. We hit them where it counts." The fighters once again maneuvered through space, avoiding enemy fire as they aimed for the heart of the Empire's remaining forces. They had a limited amount of time before the Empire regrouped. This was it, the endgame. The first wave of Earth's fighters dove in, targeting the Empire's key warships. Explosive charges were deployed, sending shockwaves through the enemy's defenses. Ships exploded in fiery bursts, their massive hulls torn apart by the precision of Earth's strikes. Vorthak watched as his fleet crumbled. His warships were falling one after another, each explosion a testament to Earth's strength and resilience. He slammed his fist down on the control panel. "This cannot be the end," he muttered. "I will not allow this rebellion to destroy everything we have built." But the truth was undeniable. The Empire was losing. Its once unstoppable power was now nothing more than a shattered remnant, broken by the unexpected strength of humanity. On Earth, the final wave of fighters launched, their engines roaring as they sped toward the last of the Empire's ships. The enemy's defenses were weak, their weapons disorganized. It was clear now. The Empire could not win. "Everyone, this is it," Captain Harrison said into the comms. "We end it now. For Earth. For the future." With one final push, Earth's forces launched the decisive blow. The remaining Empire ships were destroyed, their power cores collapsing in spectacular explosions. The remnants of the once proud fleet were reduced to space debris. Vorthek, his face filled with rage and disbelief, watched as his empire crumbled before him. "It cannot be over," he whispered, his voice trembling with frustration. But it was over. The empire had fallen, its power shattered by the resilience and ingenuity of humanity. As Earth's forces returned to their home planet, the mood was one of triumph. Humanity had faced an impossible enemy and had come out victorious. The Empire was no more, and Earth had proven to the galaxy that no one would ever again dare to push them to their knees. As the last of the Empire's ships were reduced to space debris, a wave of relief washed over Earth's forces. Captain Olivia Harrison, once just a fighter pilot in a world that felt small and distant, now stood as part of something much larger, something that would be remembered in history. "We did it," Harrison whispered, her voice a mix of disbelief and pride. Her eyes remained on the empty expanse of space, where the remnants of the Empire's fleet now drifted like forgotten dreams. The battle had been fierce, but humanity's resolve had proven stronger. Back on Earth, the celebration was beginning. People all across the globe were cheering, hugging, and crying as they watched the final moments of the Empire's defeat broadcasted live. No one had expected this outcome. No one had expected humanity, a species once considered weak and insignificant, to rise up and topple one of the greatest empires the galaxy had ever seen. Mara Chen stood before a large monitor in the Earth Command Center, still processing the news. It was a momentous victory, but there was work to be done. The Empire's collapse left a power vacuum, and the galaxy would not be the same. She understood the importance of the next steps. "We have won," Mara said to the gathered council, her voice steady but full of urgency. "But this victory must be followed by diplomacy. We cannot simply leave chaos in our wake. The galaxy needs peace." One of the council members, an older man with graying hair, spoke up. "You think the galaxy will listen to us after everything we've done?" Mara nodded, a faint smile crossing her face. "We have shown them that Earth is not a planet to be underestimated. We've proven that we can protect ourselves and that we have the strength to defend what is ours. But now we need to build a future where war is not our only option." While the Earth leaders gathered to discuss the future, Captain Harrison's squadron returned home. Their ship landed back at the base, and the pilots stepped out, weary but victorious. Harrison was the last to leave the ship. She took a deep breath of the Earth's air, grateful for the moment of calm. A young lieutenant approached her. "Captain, they're waiting for you at the command center." Harrison nodded and followed the lieutenant through the base. As they entered the command center, the room fell silent, everyone turning their attention to the captain. She stood tall, her mind still racing from the intensity of the battle. "We've made history," the lieutenant said, a smile spreading across his face. "But you led us to victory. You gave us hope." Harrison glanced around the room. The faces before her were a mix of gratitude, relief, and respect. It was clear this wasn't just a victory for Earth's military, it was a victory for humanity. "I didn't do it alone," Harrison replied, her voice humble. "We did it together. We all had a part to play." Back in space, the remnants of the Empire's fleet were still scattered. The survivors, those who had managed to escape the destruction, were lost. Their once proud empire was no more. Vorthek, the supreme leader, had disappeared in the chaos. It was said that he had fled to a distant star system, vowing revenge, but the galaxy had already moved on. The leaders of Earth knew that the real work had only just begun. The galaxy would now look to Earth for guidance, and the planet had to decide how to lead. Should they expand their influence, help the weaker civilizations rebuild, or isolate themselves and focus on their own future? Mara knew that the choices ahead would shape the future of all species in the galaxy. But for now, Earth's victory was sweet. They had shown the galaxy that no one, no matter how powerful, could take away their freedom. And as Earth's forces began to rebuild, new alliances started to form. Earth was no longer seen as just a small planet on the edge of the galaxy. It was now a beacon of hope, an example of resilience, courage, and determination. Captain Harrison returned home to a hero's welcome. She was no longer just a soldier. She was a symbol of humanity's strength, of how far they had come. She could hear the cheers of the crowd outside as she entered the city, but all she could think about was the quiet moments that had led to this victory. The training, the sacrifices, and the unrelenting belief that they could overcome any challenge. The sun was setting over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the earth. It was the dawn of a new era, one where humanity stood tall among the stars. They had refused to kneel, and now they would help guide the galaxy toward peace. As the celebrations continued, Captain Harrison and her comrades stood together, looking out at the horizon. The war was over, but the future was just beginning. Earth had proven that no one could take their freedom, and no matter what the galaxy held, humanity would always find a way to rise.